Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the second day of the NECAFS annual conference and meeting. I hope that yesterday was an exciting, fun, and engaging day to get you started into today's discussion. So because the chat box yesterday was so lively and engaging, we thought we would throw out another question to the group to get conversation started this morning. So based on your time yesterday in the meeting, we're just wondering, do you have anything that you would like to share that was a takeaway? It might be a new person that you met, or something you learned, or a new perspective, or maybe you now have an idea for your next proposal, or you met somebody who you might want to have on a PI team. So just throw some of your thoughts into the chat box and get that conversation going. And we'd love to see what some of your takeaways were from yesterday's meeting. Today, we have a really exciting morning session planned. I'm excited to have our federal updates. To lead off this morning, Jody Williams will be presenting. And many of you will remember Jody was the director of the Food Safety Outreach Program at USDA several years ago. She left for a little bit and there were some interim directors, but I am pleased to announce that Jody is back as the permanent director of the Food Safety Outreach Program. And I am excited to introduce her today and hear her update. Thank you.
Hello, thank you for the opportunity to present today. I'm going to give you some updates and highlights on the Food Safety Outreach Program. My name is Jody Williams. I am the National Program Leader for the Food Safety Outreach Program from the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the National Institute of Food and Agriculture. In 2011, the Food Safety Modernization Act was signed into legislation. The legislation stated that the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the U.S. Food and Drug Administration must partner to establish the National Food Safety Training, Education, Extension, Outreach, and Technical Assistance Competitive Grant Program, better known as the Food Safety Outreach Program. This federal partnership was established in 2015 between the U.S. Department of Agriculture, National Institute of Food and Agriculture, and the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, the Center for Food Safety and Applied Nutrition, as a formal partnership. At that time, we established a National Coordination Center and 4 regional centers to extend food safety education to our targeted communities. The purpose of the program was to provide customized food safety education to our specific audiences that would be affected or impacted by the new guidelines established under the Food Safety Modernization Act. The targeted audience includes small and mid-sized farms, beginning farmers, socially disadvantaged farmers, small processors, and small fresh produce merchant wholesalers. The Lead Regional Center is a little bit more about our national infrastructure. The Lead Regional Center is located at the University of Florida. Their role is national support and coordination for training and outreach and education across the 4 USDA designated regional centers. The 4 regional centers will reach their small and local farms and processor communities to provide FSMA compliant training in collaboration with the Lead Center. The Southern and Western regional centers are at the University of Florida and Oregon State University. And the North Central and Northeastern regional centers are located at Iowa State University and the University of Vermont and State Agricultural College. In 2022, the Food Safety Outreach Program has a budget of $10 million to sustain and further grow this program. There are 2 project types, our community outreach projects and our collaborative education and training projects. In addition to the 2 project types, there is additional funding available for our collaborative engagement supplements. The collaborative engagement supplements provide up to $150,000 of additional funding to establish significant partnerships with 1890, 1862, and 1994 land grants, as well as our insular area or Hispanic serving agricultural colleges and universities. The budgets, key personnel, and objectives must reflect these significant partnerships within the proposals. With the collaborative engagement supplements, community outreach projects can receive a maximum budget of $300,000, and our collaborative education and training projects can receive a maximum budget of up to $550,000. A little bit more about our fiscal year 2021 award highlights. In 2021, the program budget was also $10 million. There were 21 awards made, 4 in the community outreach area, 13 under collaborative education and training, and our 4 regional centers were awarded. There was a good geographical distribution of the awards. There were 6 awards in the Western region, 4 awards made in the North Central region, 5 in the Southern, and 6 in the Northeast region. The University of awards were made to highlight some of the awards made in the Northeast. The University of Vermont received their Regional Center Award. The University of Maine, Tufts University, University of Massachusetts, Cornell University, and the University of Maryland College Park were all made awards in 2021. For those who have made fiscal year 2022 proposal submissions, thank you for those. You received a letter acknowledging that your proposal will undergo the program's peer review process. We expect to notify those applicants about funding recommendations in the late winter and early spring. If any time during the review process there have been any changes in your mailing address, email address, or phone number of the project director, as well as any changes in status of other pending grant applications or objectives that may overlap with your current submission, please feel free to reach out to us and let us know. This is only if your application is currently undergoing the program's peer review process for fiscal year 2022. Those proposals were due on December 16, 2022. Excuse me, December 16, 2021. Also want to point out that our NIFA policy guide is available at the website below, nifa.usda.gov/resource/NIFA Federal Assistance Policy Guide. If you Google USDA NIFA Policy Guide, it'll pop right up as your first hit. This policy guide is a great resource for asking questions and is a comprehensive source for information on pre-award questions and post-award questions and actions, payment process, any issues you may have with audit requirements, as well as definitions of federal language, etc. We want to remind all current applicants to please draw down your funds. No, seriously, you really have to spend down those funds. If you have received an email from myself or anyone from the Awards Management Division, please respond to those emails as soon as possible. They are very serious emails, and what will happen is if you don't respond, they will close out your accounts. This is some instructions on how to draw down those payments. That information is also included in the NIFA policy guide previously mentioned. If you log into ASAP, you hover over the payment request and select the initiate payment request from dropdown. Complete the 4 steps to initiate that request that follow. There are a couple of different transaction options. You can select ACH for next day settlement, or you can select FedWire for same day settlement. If you have any questions on drawdowns, ASAP, etc., please reach out to me or your Awards Management Division or Funds Management Division branch contact that is identified on your award face sheet that was originally received with your award documentation. If you have trouble accessing your ASAP account, there are a couple of things that could have happened. Your ASAP account could have been suspended. ASAP accounts are always suspended during the last 4 business days of every month to allow for month-end reconciliations. So if that's the case and you go in and you notice it's the last 4 business days of the month, just wait until that and then try to access that account again. Administrative issues such as not fulfilling all your grantee responsibilities, any improper drawdowns and funding issues may also suspend your accounts, as well as if your performance period has expired. If any of those things have happened or any of those things are an issue outside of the last 4 business days issue, please contact awards@usda.gov. Also, your ASAP account may be closed if your final SF-425 and grant report have been submitted and approved, or it may get administratively closed due to non-compliance with terms and conditions, which also includes going for beyond a year without drawing down funds. That's why we were very serious about making sure that you're drawing down funds for your programs. If you have any ASAP login issues, please refer to ASAP Help Desk at fiscal.treasury.gov. Also, to stay active in ASAP, make sure you log into the system every 45 days. Otherwise, you'll have to reset your username and/or password. These are our contacts for the Awards Management Division. Mr. Patrick Martin is a Grants Management Specialist for the Food Safety Outreach Program, as well as Ms. Elizabeth Curling. They are both the Grants Management Specialists, and any post-award actions or pre-award actions or questions that you have, please refer those to the Awards Management Division. If you can't remember them, you forgot, you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'll also make that connection for you as well. When you do communicate with Patrick or Elizabeth, please also send an email, copy awards@usda.gov. That way they can keep track of all the communications across the different grants management specialists. Also, we'd like for you to amplify your impact stories. So as you find outcomes and impacts of your projects, please share with us. These impacts are used for blogs, publications, news releases, talking points, congressional testimony, etc. This is how we grow our programs and how we show the impact of federal dollars. These stories are often featured on our website and Twitter. Please send your impacts to impactstories@usda.gov and copy the national program leader. We'll again just re-forward it to impactstories@usda.gov. And oftentimes we're reached out to by our communications staff, either at the agency level, mission area level, and even at the department level to talk about some of our programs. So it's always nice to have some impact stories that we can just shuttle forward. Also, if you're posting on Twitter or you're tweeting about us, about one of the programs and the impact, please use the hashtag NIFA impacts so we can capture it within our Twitter, within the USDA Twitter and NIFA Twitter. Also, remember to acknowledge USDA NIFA support. There are detailed instructions on how to use that acknowledgement provided below. Also, whenever practical, NIFA also expects that grantees use NIFA's official identifier in their publications, posters, websites, and presentations resulting from their award. If you have any questions or you're looking for the NIFA identifier, you can #1, Google NIFA's official identifier. It'll come up right away. It's on our website. The identifier is this right here, found in the top left-hand corner. This is our NIFA official identifier. And it's on all of my slides. For formal and official contact information, again, my name is Jody Williams. I'm the National Program Leader for the program. Jody.williams@usda.gov will get any emails to me. Our program specialist is Dr. Courtney Simmons, and Courtney's email is courtney.simmons@usda.gov, and her phone number is available here below. Thank you, and I look forward to any questions that you may have during the meeting and also during any of the breakout sessions during the meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jody, for that presentation. I've been looking at the chat box and I've noticed that there have not been very many responses to my initial question of what was something new that you, a new thing that you learned yesterday or a new person that you met. And so I've decided to completely just get rid of that question. And I'm inspired by Amanda Kinchla's little tag after her name in the chat box, which says, the Girl Scouts of Hadley, Massachusetts. And so instead, why don't we all list our favorite Girl Scout cookie in the chat box? I know that cookie sales are coming up soon, and it might just get us all in the mood to support our Girl Scouts. So let's get rid of the first question and go with what's your favorite Girl Scout cookie flavor? I'd love to see if Thin Mints or Caramel Delights is the winner. Personally, I'm going to vote for Thin Mints, but maybe it'll be Caramel Delights. So here we go. Now it's alive. Great. Thanks, everybody. The other thing I wanted to say was we will have a Q&A session after we hear from our next presenter. So if you have questions for either Jody or Adriana, please put them in the chat box and we'll do Q&A with both of them after the presentations are finished. So I would next like to introduce Adriana Jimenez-Lopez from the Food and Drug Administration. Adriana is the Produce Safety Network rep for the Northeast region, and I'm very thrilled to welcome her back again this year to give an update on the FDA for our region and some of the recent announcements that we've seen come out of the FDA. So thank you very much, and here's Adriana.
Good morning and happy 2022, everybody. My name is Adriana Jimenez-Lopez. I'm from FDA, Center for Food Safety and Applied Nutrition. I'm part of the Produce Safety Network for the Northeast region, and today I will be providing a brief update to you on the PSN and also updates on the proposed agricultural water rule. So here is the system PSN staff. We continue to work remotely. We are located around the country. We have system PSN representatives for all the regions, to include international, with me covering the Northeast. So there have been a few changes in staff. Some of us know Stephen Hughes. He's no longer our team lead, as he has moved to another important areas in our agency. And until these positions are filled, we have 2 acting team leads, which is Diane Ducharme. She will be acting team lead for the group from January to May, and then Laura Cronenfelder from May to August. What we do is at a high level here in this slide. PSN continues to provide technical expertise in the safety of fresh fruit and vegetables. We also continue to provide technical assistance for outbreak investigations and compliance and enforcement actions. And a lot of these efforts involve extensive collaboration, all for national consistency. And we value working with all of our state partners, extension, academia, and industry. And for that, I wanted to give a big thank you to all of our collaborators in supporting produce safety rule activities. So I wanted to spend a couple minutes here to share some highlights from 2021 from different activities that we have been working on. These activities all range across education, inspectional assistance, international and domestic outreach, and technical assistance, and work on proposed rules. Our office is working with NASDA to develop and offer produce safety inspection scenarios with virtual national workshops offered to state and federal produce safety staff. We also continue to work on the produce safety rule compliance and implementation guidance for industry. On October 2021, we successfully conducted a first tribal on-farm readiness review on a tribal-owned farm on tribal lands in Michigan. And also in the international areas, our PSN international staff held several webinars to Latin America and also offered a virtual BSAO workshop in Mexico. We are also updating materials for international OFRR to be ready to resume once travel restrictions are lifted. And then there's the proposed agricultural water rule, which I will provide some informational updates very soon in the next couple slides. One of the main activities in regards training and education is this series of workshops that we have been working on. And as we're all aware, our division continues to work with stakeholders in industry, academia, and state regulatory programs to offer produce safety workshops to growers and other interested members of the agricultural community. Our goals, they continue to be able to offer them within the regions. As we know, each region has specific conditions and specific practices and challenges. And the idea is to tailor it to where we hold it and with each region needs. So a systems thinking workshop was successfully completed in June 2021 for the Northeast states. These are to resume in winter of 2022, and more information will be coming soon. The biological soil amendment of animal origin workshop has also been very successful. It has been so far offered to these states that are listed here, and there's been discussion with some other states and are currently on planning steps. The cleaning and sanitizing workshop continues to be under development with states and national partners. One pilot was offered in fiscal year 2021, with a second pilot going on during this month. The Agricultural Water Systems Workshop successfully held a first pilot back in November 3rd and 4th of 2021, which included North Carolina growers and regulators from surrounding states. The presentation team included the North Carolina Department of Ag, North Carolina University, National Farmers, United Fresh, Produce Association, and FDA. The working team is meeting in the near future to review pre and post tests and all of the evaluations for the determination of changes and next steps. And another pilot will likely be scheduled in the future. You may have also heard about our Cytospora webinar, and the main objectives here is to share current information related to the pathogenic parasite Cytospora cayetanensis with producers, packers, and other fresh produce stakeholders. If you're interested in working with us in offering any of these workshops in your state, please reach out to me for more information. Okay, now I wanted to move on the agricultural water proposed rule. And we're taking this opportunity to reach out to stakeholders to ensure that you are aware of the notice for proposed rulemaking publication. This specific outreach is to provide an overview of the ag water proposed rule and is not meant to serve as an in-depth discussion. Stakeholders are encouraged to review the publication independently and submit comments to the docket. More information will be provided towards the end of my presentation. So if finalized, this proposal is going to replace the pre-harvest microbial quality criteria and testing requirements that were previously published in the Produce Safety Rule for cover produce, and replaced with the requirements for systems-based pre-harvest agricultural water assessment. And I'm going to explain what it means by a system-based pre-harvest ag water assessment in upcoming slides. So this assessment will require cover farms to conduct pre-harvest agricultural water assessments at least once annually, and whenever a change occurs that increases the likelihood that a known or reasonable foreseeable hazard will be introduced into or onto produce or food contact surfaces. So this assessment will be used to identify conditions that could introduce known or reasonable foreseeable hazards into or onto produce or food contact surfaces. And then, once the information for that assessment has been captured, growers will then make the determination as to whether or not a corrective action or a mitigation measure are needed to minimize the risk associated with pre-harvest agricultural water. This assessment captures elements of produce production ranging from environmental contributors to characteristics of the crops that's being grown, as well as the source and nature of the agricultural water that's being applied to the produce. So growers are going to be looking at the agricultural water source and systems, and so that takes into account the location and nature of the water source, like understanding whether it is a groundwater source or a surf water source, and also how is the water distributed or type of distribution system. The assessment also takes into account the way that the water is applied to the produce, as well as the time interval between direct application and the harvest. And the assessment also takes into account characteristics that may be specific to a particular crop. This assessment also captures environmental conditions. And so growers will be required to consider whether there is any other potential type of environmental impact, whether the farm is in an area that receives high volumes of rainfall, or an area prone to other extreme weather events like flooding, higher or lower air temperatures, or high or low sun UV exposure. Additionally, there is another category within the assessment that we've titled as other relevant factors. And this will be other components of the assessment that will help a grower in their decision-making process as to whether or not a mitigation measure or a corrective measure must be applied, such as testing results that could inform assessment. We know microbial testing is not a requirement for all farms, but under some conditions, some farms may choose to include microbial testing as part of their assessment to implement subsequent management strategies. Okay, so based on the data that we've collected through this assessment on the elements that were just discussed, grower will then make written determinations about whether corrective actions or mitigation measures are needed. And this could include unexpedited mitigation measures to address known or reasonable foreseeable hazards in agricultural water systems that could be associated with animal activity, biological soil amendment of animal origins, or untreated or improperly treated human waste on adjacent and nearby land. Here is a summary of outcomes and actions that will be required. So first, growers will evaluate water to identify hazard contributing conditions and factors, and take into account results to determine whether water is safe or of adequate sanitary quality for its intended use. The grower must ensure that the water is safe and of adequate sanitary quality. And if they determine that the water is not safe or not of adequate sanitary quality for its intended use, then the growers must immediately discontinue the use and apply corrective measures before resuming the use of that water. If you determine that there is one or more known or reasonable foreseeable hazards related to animal activity, biological soil amendment of animal origins, or untreated or improperly treated human waste for which mitigation is reasonably necessary, then you must implement mitigation measures promptly and no later than the same growing season. If you determine there is one or more known or reasonable foreseeable hazards that are not related to animal activities, BSAOOs, or untreated or improperly treated human waste for which mitigation is reasonably necessary, then you must implement mitigation measures as soon as practicable and no later than the following year. Or test water as part of the assessment and implement measures as needed based on the outcome of the assessment. And lastly, if the grower determines that there are no known or reasonable foreseeable hazards for which mitigation is reasonably necessary, then you must continue to inspect and adequately maintain the water system at least once each year. There are some exemptions that are associated with this assessment. The grower can demonstrate that their pre-harvest ag water for cover produce meets the requirement for harvesting and post-harvest agricultural water, such as the microbial quality criterion and testing requirements for untreated groundwater, then the water is exempt from carrying out an assessment. If the water is received from a public water system or supply that meets requirements established in the rule, then that water is also exempt from the assessment, as long as the farm has results or certificate of compliance demonstrating that the water meets relevant requirements. And if the water is treated in accordance with the standards outlined in the rule, then the water is also exempt from the assessment. You may have noticed that parts of Subpart E have been reorganized, and that some requirements may have been renumbered, making it more clear this time to see which requirements are associated with pre-harvest provisions and which requirements are associated with harvest and post-harvest provision. However, FDA is not proposing any changes to alter the requirements in Subpart E for sprouts, for water used during harvest, packing and holding activities, or for treatment of agricultural water. Some other additional changes is that we've also added definitions for agricultural water assessment and agricultural water system to provide additional clarity. FDA is looking to continue to engage with stakeholders. So please, if you have a comment to share with FDA, submit it to the docket. It is very important to note that to participate in the rulemaking process and have your voice heard and comments officially considered, you must either speak at a public meeting or submit written comment to the docket. The comment period is for 120 days, and this is from the day it was published. So please note the comment period ends on April 5th, 2022. Importantly, if finalized, the FDA intends to work closely with our state partners, NASDA educators, and others to provide the necessary training to implement these changes to the agricultural water requirements. Additionally, FDA is developing an online tool to help growers walk through this assessment, and it is expected to be available sometime early this year and will be available for, of course, to assist farms in evaluating potential risk posed by the water sources and in determining potential management options. FDA intends to exercise enforcement discretion for the agricultural water requirements for cover produce, while proposing to extend the compliance dates for all Subpart E provisions applicable to such produce. More information on the proposed compliance dates will be announced in a forthcoming notice in the Federal Register. The FDA is committed to engaging with stakeholders on the proposed rule, and as such, the agency also intends to hold 2 virtual public meetings to discuss the proposal and hear feedback. The public meetings are scheduled for February 14 and February 25. More specifics, including information on how to register for the meetings, are in the Federal Register and on our FDA website. If there are any questions about the content of the notice for proposal rulemaking publication, please direct them to the Ag Water generic email address, agwater@fda.hhs.gov, to ensure that it is directed to appropriate FDA personnel. Please have in mind that to ensure comments on the Ag Water are considered in developing an Ag Water final rule, you must either speak at one of these public meetings that I mentioned earlier, or submit written comment to the docket electronically or in written form. here is the end of my presentation. Please reach out to me or anyone from my team if you need assistance that we may help you with. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adriana. So if you have questions for either Adriana or Jody, please put them in the chat box and we will have a live Q&A with both presenters. While I'm waiting for folks to put their questions in the Q&A, I wanted to give the results of the favorite Girl Scout cookie competition. And with honorable mention, we have a tie for the Girl Scout s'mores, the Do-si-dos, and Juliet's. In third place with 4, we have the peanut butter patties or tag-alongs. In second place with a score of 6, we have caramel delights or Samoas. And the number 1, which I predicted, is Thin Mints with a score of 11. So thank you for everybody for participating. And Chris Callahan will help me to ask questions of our speakers. And I will start out. Sean asked, are there plans to implement any of the workshops, systems thinking, BSAAO, CNS, ag water systems virtually? And Stephanie contributed that they are currently being held virtually. But Adriana, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, sure. And good morning, everyone. Yeah, like Stephanie mentioned, yeah, we have successfully completed these workshops virtually. It is up to the state, actually. Since this is very flexible, we will support in any way. For the BSAOO, for example, we've had virtual farm visits included in the workshop when offered virtually. So we can make it work anyway. Like, also, we recently had an kind of a hybrid workshop where some people were in person while we FDA were virtually, and it was very successful as well. And again, like Stephanie mentioned, we are actually hosting our cleaning and sanitizing workshop in a virtual center. So yeah, definitely.
Thanks, Adriana. The other question, the next question was whether the slides will be available anywhere. My understanding is we'll make slides available on the NECAFS website from the annual meeting, as long as Adriana or Jody have no reservations about that.
Right, and the next question is from Jeff in Pennsylvania. Is 126 CFU generic E. coli still the gold standard for surface water?
Okay, well, thank you, Jeff, for this question. This is a very good question. At this point, I will welcome to the docket. This is something that we would like to see as, like, this is something very specific, and yeah, that's all I can say at this time. We really welcome it to the docket. This is a proposed rule, so any feedback we take into consideration.
So I'm guessing the next question from Jeff might have the same response, but let's take a look at it together anyway. It has to do with whether or not the 0.5 log reduction per day is still a viable corrective action.
Yeah, and again, like at this point, since these are very specific questions, and this is more about like interpreting, we're asked to please submit them to the docket, because that's the only way that we can make sure that they're being considered once the rule is finalized. But thank you for the question. It is a very good question.
So yeah, important to remember this is a proposed revision. So the docket is the place to get clarification on some of these things. Elizabeth, you want to take the next one?
Yep. So the next question. One of the water system assessment factors is crop characteristics, such as susceptibility to surface adhesion and internalization of microbial hazards. This is an area of scientific uncertainty, and these characteristics can vary among cultivars of the same crop. So how do we help growers to make determinations about this type of issue where the science is still very young?
Yeah, again, another very good question. And I understand that all of these, crop characteristics, they vary per crop. So, there can be very different ways to help the farmers. But again, with this new proposed rule, we are letting the farmers, it's more flexible in the way that we're looking at this assessment, and we're letting them assess their crops. We're letting them assess the way that they're farming. And again, this can vary a lot. And I know, again, this is a proposed rule, and I may not have the answer for your question right now, but please keep in mind that, once the rule is finalized, we will help. We will be providing more guidance for all this topic and how we can help more growers with determining what's the best way to assess their farms.
Thanks, Adriana. Hans asks whether we can get slides or important bullet points that will help technical assistance providers accurately translate produce safety rule updates to growers. Now, I know there is an FDA page that is a brief summary of the proposed rule revision. Are there other resources that we should be aware of that might help with that?
Yeah, I think like right now our FDA website has a lot of resources as they come. Again, this is a proposed rule. There's not much out, but if you go to our FDA website, we have some fact sheets there, and again, like as questions comes, and we and as the rule gets finalized, we'll for sure have more guidance on this topic.
Thanks, Adriana. Roger is asking, FDA provided a presentation to United Fresh in the ag, ag water. I see it's an abbreviation. Yeah. Okay, in December, is that publicly available?
If it's the same one, I'm thinking where Crudy was one of the was the person that was doing the presentation. Yes, I think it is available in YouTube. I'm not sure of the link. I have to check, but yeah, I think it is on YouTube available.
Thanks. Sean Fogarty asks, for newer folks, is there any advice about making meaningful, constructive comments on the docket?
Okay. So, I mean, me personally, I haven't done any comments in the docket, but for sure, be very specific. Like, the more specific you are, the more information we have, and the more that we can like look at these questions and find the best answer, and look how we can address this situation specific. Because I know, like, we know there can be a lot of different our farms are different. We know that. So the more specific that you are with these comments, the better for us.
Yeah, thank you. And that's a good segue. Michelle Smith from FDA provided the comment that this could also be covered in guidance, at least in general terms. It's also good to submit good questions as a comment. So Mary is asking, I understand that the intended audience for the cleaning and sanitizing workshops is personnel who lead or perform cleaning and sanitization activities, including monitoring and verification on farms covered by the produce safety rule. Are you finding that several workshops are well attended by farmers who during the growing season would not have that kind of time to devote to a training? So are you finding that a several-hour workshop is still being attended, even though it's quite a time commitment for growers to attend?
Okay. Yeah. So right now, so this is a pilot workshop at the moment, which means that we are still considering, we're still looking for feedback And again, these workshops are very flexible. So once we get the feedback from the pilots, and it can help us determine how we can go forward with these workshops. Right now, again, like this workshop is being offered virtually, but I mean, it can be offered in person in the future. And time, it also depends. I mean, it doesn't have to be, the state and the person who's hosting the workshop will determine what's best for each state, like when to offer it, how. So it's very flexible in terms of when to offer them, and considering the availability of the growers that are attending. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you. Michelle adds that comment, getting back to the question about approach for making comments on the docket in the docket. Michelle notes, comments with data and or real world examples are most substantive. Stephanie Brown, from the organizer perspective, we've had a large interest in this pilot and have had to turn people away because the course fills up. So there is interest and engagement on these. Other questions, folks?
Yeah, Chris, I'll jump in. I have a question for Jody about the timeline for the next FSOP RFA, because the last two were fairly close together. Was that sort of a budgetary reason, or is that what we should be expecting moving forward?
It was administrative. So, and it predated my arrival. I just got back. I came back like the week, maybe 3 weeks before it closed, but the dates had already been, the timeline had already been established. But based off of the information that I heard, it was an administrative decision from our agency leadership. And it just had to do with how we were spreading out all of our programs across the agency. I do expect a similar timeline. If it's a little bit longer, it'll just push a little bit later into maybe the next month, but it won't be far off in terms of the timeline for the program next year.
And another question, Jody, for relative to the FSOP Food Safety Outreach Program. We had a lengthy discussion in the Produce Safety Work Group yesterday about worker training and the need for different approaches and or more worker training to successfully operationalize produce safety risk reduction practices. And I remember a shift a couple years back, or in addition to the FSOP, that included a focus on providing direct technical assistance. And I just was hoping you might comment on that a little bit, because one of the things I think people were talking about was providing direct technical assistance to help growers provide improved worker training to reduce produce safety risk. Is that still something that FSOP would value, and is it are expenses associated with it allowed?
Sure, it's still definitely on the table in terms of as long as you're working with that, supporting that target audience, direct technical assistance could certainly be an opportunity or something that could be eligible for funding if submitted. Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Great. So Adriana, I have a question for you from Seth. In the day, we heard the FDA was going to give guidance on farms being able to share water testing results for a common water source, such as the Connecticut River. FDA was going to advise how close farms could be to share, half a mile, etc. Is that coming?
Yeah, and again, this is a proposed rule. So right now, there's no, of course, there's no guidance, but we expect that once we get the final rule, we will be developing training materials for inspector and also more guidance for growers on this topic. Yes.
I think we're currently through the questions that I can see in the chat box. Is there anything that either Adriana or Jody might want to add since the pre-recorded presentations that have come up that you think might be important to the NECAFS folks?
Well, not necessarily anything new to add, but just to, if you have any questions about eligibility or appropriate programs, appropriate projects to submit, feel free to reach out and shoot me an email. If it's long and you think it's too much to put in an email, just say, do you have 15 or 20 minutes to talk, and we'll set up some time to chat. We're always welcome and available for meetings and just to have a conversation. I know sometimes folks are a little bit nervous about those cold calls or cold emails, but feel free to just reach out. And if you have any questions, thoughts, concerns, recommendations, we take all of that and we take all of that. Okay, that's everything.
Thanks, Jody. Adriana, Roger Noonan has a question about it. Is there any update on when we might expect additional produce safety rule guidance?
At this time, we don't have any date. We are working on the draft guidance, and as we get new information and new data, but hopefully we'll be able to get it out soon. But at this time, we don't have any dates.
Thanks, Adriana. Hans has added a comment and kind of a question to Seth's earlier question about sharing water results from people who have a same common water source. And Hans is reflecting that it seems that linear distance in a river is dependent on river size and flow rate and adjacent land use, among other things. So variable. How could FDA ever have guidance on this? I think it's maybe a rhetorical question. I'm not sure if you have any thoughts on that, but
I think Thin Mints is the answer.
We have a bit more time, so now is the time to ask your questions for either Adriana or Jody. I will reiterate that we will get the slides posted onto the NECAFS website. The other thing is that this conference website remains live for a year, and all of the recorded sessions are on the page. So you can come back to this conference website at any time over the next year and view the content. Okay, we have a couple more questions. Adriana, can you expand at all on the tools FDA is creating to help farms assess risk?
Can you hear me?
Adriana, did you hear the question?
I'm sorry, I have it like a back thing here. I don't know, can you all hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so the questions.
Oh yeah, so the question is, can you expand?
I'm sorry.
Yep, no problem. Can you expand at all on the tool FDA is creating to help farms assess risk?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So right now the tool is not out, but once the tool is released, it's gonna give a lot of insights on how FDA envisions this assessment play out in use for like record keeping uses purposes. Once these requirements are finalized, we envision this like part of this record keeping and these assessments beyond this, etc.
Annie is asking, do FSOP grants consider a no-cost extension, Jody?
Yes. So the first 1-year no cost extension is just a notification from your sponsor programs office or administrative office. The second or beyond is actually a request that we have to approve. So just make sure all your reports are submitted, annual reports, financial reports, and things of that nature, and you should be good to go. But yes, they are definitely entertained and an option.
Thank you.
Thanks. And Steph has another comment on the sharing of data. So with respect to water data sharing, we have 3 farms, this is in New Hampshire, within a quarter of a mile of each other who all take out of the same side of the river. The idea is that water quality characteristics likely won't change in that short of a distance. And so by sharing test results, it would save money and time. It would be interesting. I would be interested in knowing if this is still being considered. While on one of these farms, FDA said it was coming. So I don't know if you have anything to add, Adriana, to this additional comment, or same as before.
Yeah, and again, these are very good comments. All of these are very good comments. And you know, as Michelle mentioned on the chat here, we can talk more at that public meetings. And also, like, again, this is all very good. And I'm sorry I don't have all the answers right now, but again, we have to realize that, like, you know, keep in mind that this is a proposed rule, and all these questions, all these great questions and comments should be, I really, really, really encourage you to submit them to the docket.
Michelle Smith adds that regarding the questions about the risk assessment tool, that's something that can be discussed during the public meetings that are scheduled in February, and FDA plan to communicate as they can on that. Sounds like it's still very much in development. And then Seth has a follow-up question: Is the FDA considering any direct financial support for farms, be it through the state grants or another program? I think specific to water testing and risk assessment.
Yeah, I think this question, I'm not the best person to answer. Maybe this will be, if it is related to CAP grantees, I think this will be more directed to OP, Office of Partnership, but yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And again, if you have any final questions, please, or comments, put them into the chat. And I know that in terms of submitting comments to the docket, there are a few opportunities. I know PSA is hosting something coming up soon about collecting comments and thinking through some of that in order to submit comments to the docket. So if you have some comments and would like to make sure that they get entered, I would highly encourage participating in some of those kinds of opportunities or submitting them directly yourself. But there's will be opportunities. Okay, well, I think if we don't have any other, okay, thanks, Jeff. So to clarify, FDA is proposing that we comment on a proposal that is based on a risk assessment that is still being developed.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, it's not more like we're proposed, like, I mean, I'm trying to read the question here if I understand it right. So again, we know this is a proposed rule and we are asking for everybody to put, if you have any comments on the proposed rule, to include them in the docket. I'm not sure if that answered his question. I'm not sure what exactly he meant, but yeah. Yes.
I mean, it seems reasonable to me that the development of the actual risk assessment tool would be informed by comments in during the comment period. So I think that's what we're getting at here. Is the comment period is open now so that the process can be informed, and I think that seems reasonable. Wes Klein has also noted that NASDA is holding regional meetings on the water rule. If anybody has information on the schedule for those, that would be helpful.
Well, I think if we don't have any additional comments, thanks, Wes. He says they're finalizing the dates. I really want to thank Adriana and Jody for joining us and taking difficult questions and fielding unknown territory and helping guide the region through some of this new information coming out. Certainly more to come. That seems to be the motto with FSMA. We're always learning, we're always getting more information, and we're always discovering in order to do better with this work. So this is just a small step in that large process. So I appreciate your contributions to the discussion this morning in our life journey of learning about all of this. So thank you for that. And I'll turn it over to you, Chris, to just introduce the break and what's up next.
Great. Thanks, Elizabeth. Thanks, Jody. Thanks, Adriana. So we are a bit early. So that means we're all going to get a bit longer break. So yay, enjoy your time away from the screen and maybe even get outside. It's a beautiful day here. We will come back together at 10:30, but separately we'll be back in concurrent work group meetings. You should soon, or if not now already, be seeing a slide with clickable links to bring you to either the produce safety work group meeting or the preventive controls for human food work group meeting when we come back at 10:30. So those links should be available to you. And with that, I wish everybody a nice break. See you at 10:30.